Hello viewers, and welcome to Exploring Cinema with Brian Meadows. I, of course, am Brian. So, I just got back from watching Homecoming, or Spider-Man Homecoming, with Mallory and a friend of mine from work, and there's a lot to talk about. So, this is obviously a new iteration of Spider-Man, as most of you know, or don't, I don't know. I guess a lot of people still don't realize that Tobey Maguire isn't Spider-Man anymore, which is strange. But in this one, he's played by a new guy who first came out in Captain America Civil War. And in this film, he's trying to balance himself being a superhero as well as his high school life while he's battling with one of his Sinister Six villains, the Vulture. As I said, Tom Holland reprises his role from Captain America Civil War as Peter Parker slash Spider-Man. Oh my god, I believed in this kid ever since I saw him in Civil War. With his limited amount of screen time, I absolutely loved him. And, of course, I was always worrying that if I saw him in his own standalone movie, that the feeling would actually lessen, or I would actually change my mind. But, luckily, it didn't. I think that he is the best Spider-Man that we've ever had, because I'm one of those people, I had issues with both iterations of Spider-Man that came before. Tobey Maguire was a really good Peter Parker, but I thought that he sucked as Spider-Man. And then Andrew Garfield, I thought the opposite. I thought that he was a very mediocre Peter Parker, but I thought that he was a borderline great Spider-Man. But this was the best of both worlds for him, and I can't wait to see him in more. He's so goddamn funny, and he's just intriguing and compelling to watch as this character. But of course, a really good and even great superhero needs a great or good or great supervillain. And we get that with Michael Keaton playing Adrian Toomes, otherwise known as the Vulture. He was a salvager. That was his original job, but he's actually, and it's hinted in the trailers, or basically given away, that he was actually, he was a salvager as his job, but he actually lost a few projects due to Tony Stark. And a few things that he put into place. So he actually has a personal vendetta against the government, and because of that, he's now an arms engineer and weapons trafficker. I've got to say, this is Michael Keaton. He can do no wrong, and he's had a resurgence in the past few years with great performances in Spotlight, Birdman, and even The Founder, which just came out last year. And he's great in this. He just commands, his presence just commands that you pay attention to him during this film. And honestly, there are parts where he's downright terrifying. I was actually scared a few times when he was on screen. Just, that's the kind of guy that Michael Keaton is. He's that great. You can love him and hate him at the same time. And of course, we all know from the trailers, Robert Downey Jr. is in this movie, reprising his role once again as Tony Stark slash Iron Man. I think this is like his 10th reprisal of the role. He's almost there. He's been playing him a while. I think he's played the character a little bit longer, or a few more many times than Hugh Jackman did as Wolverine. And I will go ahead and say, he's not in the movie that much. I know that a lot of people thought that he would be because of how much he was in the trailers, but I would say he's probably in a total of 7, maybe 8 minutes throughout the film, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually think that they did him tastefully, but of course, he still gives that commanding presence, just like Michael Keaton. And actually, there was a part where him and Peter are talking, and Tony is extremely mad at Peter, and he's not even wearing his suit, but he steps up to him like he's getting ready to, like, I don't know, what would an elder do, spank him or something? But he just walks up to him, and he actually had a bit of a terrifying factor to him. I had no idea what he was going to do, and that just shows that Robert Downey Jr. still has it. But like I said, even though he is important to the actual film, he's not in it that much, so you guys don't have to worry about that. But he's still great. Jacob Batalon plays Peter's high school friend Ned. You know, the larger kid who's in all the trailers. I gotta say, he's one of my favorite parts of the movie. He is extremely funny and just... He's got that vibe about him where, you know, you just look at him and you're just like, oh my god, you're adorable. Like, I'm not really sure how else to put it, but I loved every moment that he was on screen. He had great chemistry with Tom Holland, and I would honestly say he was actually slightly better than Tom Holland. Only slightly, because he just, he had more funny lines, and just... Actually, I don't know how to describe it, really. But I would actually say that he's my favorite character, with Tom Holland being a very close second. Very close. And then we have Disney Channel, or whatever, Disney XD. I don't know what they're fucking... I don't know what they're called anymore, but the actress Zendaya, she plays Michelle in this. She's a bit of a... not really socially awkward student. She just doesn't care. She's kind of rebellious. But everybody was always saying, or they were theorizing that maybe she was Mary Jane. I will actually say, without a doubt, she is not Mary Jane. Her name is Michelle. Her name is actually Michelle. She doesn't get too much screen time, but when she's on there, I just loved everything that she did. She was just this quirky outsider who, as I said, doesn't care what anybody thinks about her. And she's a very independent woman, and oh god, there were a lot of things that I wish I could tell you about her character, especially like what makes her funny and what makes her feel kind of original, but I really can't because I don't want to spoil anything at all. Laura Harrier in this film plays Liz, who is at this time the love interest of Peter, and there was nothing wrong with Harrier's performance. I actually thought she did good for what she had, but honestly, she was a little too underwritten for me, and this is supposed to be the current love interest of Peter Parker. There's no Gwen Stacy in this world, yet, at least, and there's not even Mary Jane Parker, and we get this, and she's supposed to be more important to him, so we don't even get a little bit more of who she is as a character. I don't get that. So this film's a collaboration between two film studios. We have the Walt Disney Company, who actually owns Marvel Studios as an arm of the corporation. And then we have Sony Pictures. And the reason why it's Sony is because they still own the film rights to Spider-Man. And honestly, they're kind of lending them to Marvel. They started lending them the rights ever since Captain America Civil War, and they realized that it worked, so they decided, let's keep this going. And my understanding is that Sony and Marvel wanted two different things for the actual story. Sony was more in line for a sort of more action-oriented Spider-Man, which is more like their other incarnations with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which honestly I don't like the idea of. But then Kevin Feige and everybody else at Marvel Studios wanted more of a sort of high school drama comedy, sort of kind of John Hughes feeling movie, you know, like Home Alone and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like that kind of feeling movie. And I feel like it's a very beautiful marriage of the two. I actually think that's the strongest part of the film, was that the story is just a nice meld of that high-intensity action and high school drama slash comedy. However, the film does falter whenever it comes to pacing. I did feel like mostly in some of the high school scenes and a couple of the action scenes, I felt like things started to get a little bit drawn out. But luckily, I was able to focus a bit on the characters, and just because they were compelling and how much I was having fun getting to know these characters, it helped ease it along a bit, but it still didn't help the dragging of the pacing. And of course, the visual effects in this movie are really good. I only say really good because, I mean, the last two movies that we got for Marvel Studios, like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that one was visually impressive. And then the one before that was Doctor Strange, which is, in my opinion, the second best film of 2016 as far as visuals. And I only say that because I actually think that the Jungle Book's visuals are better, but I'm getting off track. You didn't need to go all the way over the top for a Spider-Man movie. It's a bit more grounded than something like, I don't know, the interdimensional and cosmic realms of Doctor Strange and all the galactic adventures of the Guardians. You didn't need to go that far. You can be a little bit more grounded and more realistic. And for those of you who've been watching me for a while, you're probably going to get a little annoyed after hearing this again, but this film is scored by Michael Giacchino, who is now in my top 5 of composers that are still alive today. And I still think that he is the heir apparent to the Star Wars franchise to replace John Williams after he dies. Even though he did Rogue One and that wasn't a good score, but that honestly wasn't his fault. And I love this score. It's definitely not one of his best, but I would say it's definitely in his top 10. And I just loved it. And he actually found a way to incorporate the original 1960s Spider-Man cartoon theme. And when that happened, fanboy moment. Every single time it happened, I just couldn't handle myself. I was just sitting in my chair shaking. I was so excited. To recap, Spider-Man Homecoming is my second favorite Spider-Man movie. I still think it falls a good bit after Spider-Man 2, which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. You've got a terrific lead who is, without a doubt, the best live-action Spider-Man that we've ever had. You have a really good villain, and honestly, he's even great by Marvel Studios standards, because honestly, they haven't given us too many villains that were really good to begin with, so honestly, he's in my top 5 for MCU villains. And then you have a great supporting cast, with some of them being a little underdeveloped for my taste, but they still did a good job in their roles. And then you've got a really good story that is a great marriage between high-intensity action and high school drama/comedy. Pretty good visuals, and I loved the soundtrack and the score. It was really good. I give Spider-Man Homecoming a blue lightsaber. Now, as I always do before I finish up my reviews for Marvel films, there are after-credit scenes. Please watch them. There's not as many as Guardians, which had like 5, 6, or 7. This one only has 2, but they're well worth it, with the very last one being, in my opinion, the best after-credit scene that I've ever seen for a Marvel film. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me ramble on and on. Now, what did you guys think of Spider-Man Homecoming? Did you love it, hate it, were you indifferent, you haven't seen it yet, etc., etc.? What are its strengths? What were the weaknesses? I want to know. I welcome new perspectives. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already for more reviews and content. There's always more to come. And for other ways to help support the channel, please check out in the description down below. Thanks once again for watching, and farewell until the next video. Bye.